at this point of the world's longest mountain range before 52 years ago. A plane collided with a straight mountain. The surprising thing was that the plane disappeared immediately after the collision. This was 8,900 kilometers long South America's Andes mountain range, where 15,000 feet high mountains, unbearable cold and silence. Nothing else is available. For many days, when they did not find plane wreckage and any dead bodies, it became clear to the authorities that there would be no passengers left alive. So they announced the closure of the search operation. News media also talked about the plane crash incident for the next few days, and after that, everything gradually started to return to normal. People had forgotten about this incident, but after 2.5 months, exactly 72 days after the accident, the authorities received a message from the missing plane. Welcome back to 𝗥𝗱 videos. Viewers, this was the Uruguay Air Force Flight 571, which has written its name in history as a miracle in real life. On October 12, 1972, this flight takes off from the capital of Uruguay, Montevideo. The plane had rugby players who had to play a match from Montevideo to the capital of Chile, Santiago. Including rugby players, the plane had a total of 40 passengers and 5 crew members. After takeoff, the plane had just landed in Argentina. Suddenly, due to bad weather, they had to land in the city of Argentina, Mendoza. The captain made this decision because the highest mountain range in the world is standing between Argentina and Chile. The high mountains here are already very dangerous, and it was not safe to pass through them due to bad weather. The pilot's plan was to spend one night in Mendoza and then the next day cross the Andes Mountains. But what did the pilot and all the passengers know about what would happen to them the next day? The next day, on Friday, October 13, Flight 571 took off from Mendoza. On the map, Mendoza and its destination are only 180 kilometers away from Santiago. But in these 180 kilometers, only Andes has 15,000 feet high peaks. Therefore, the planned route of the flight was something like this. First, the plane will go south of Mendoza and gain its height, and then it will reach near the Planchon Pass, turn towards Andes and cross these dangerous mountains. And then it will turn from the city of Chile to Corico and land directly at Santiago. The pilot of Flight 571 had completed almost 50 flights on this route. Therefore, he had a lot of confidence in himself. As soon as the plane took off from Mendoza, the plane headed south according to the plan. While gaining the height of the plane, the pilot noticed that a thick layer of clouds had hidden the whole view of the bottom. In this condition, the pilot contacted the control tower, which will look at the radar and tell the pilot its location through the radio. Apart from the control tower, the pilot can also estimate its location in another way. In this, the aircraft's last known location is kept in mind and calculated by the speed of the aircraft. In aviation, it's called dead reckoning. As soon as Flight 571 reached the Planchon Pass, they took the right turn. Now at an altitude of 18,000 feet, they were crossing the mountains of Andes, blue sky above and white clouds below. The pilot was completely dependent on the Santiago Air Traffic Control Tower. As soon as they reached the Planchon Pass, Flight 571 disappeared from the control tower radar. This was a normal thing because the radar signals were very weak due to the mountains. On this occasion, the co-pilot calculated its location through dead reckoning and radioed the Santiago control tower at 3.21 that after a minute we will reach the city of Chile, Corico, and asked for permission to reduce their altitude. Normally, it takes 11 minutes for the plane to reach Corico from the Planchon Pass. but they covered this distance in just 3 minutes. The staff at the control tower did not understand this, but because they did not have Flight 571 on the radar, they gave permission to descend the aircraft, but they had no idea that the location calculated by the co-pilot was wrong. The pilot thought they were above 𝗥𝗲, but it was actually crossing the Planchon Pass. A great disaster was waiting for Flight 571. As soon as they got permission from the control tower, the pilot turned right and began to reduce the height of the aircraft. In the beginning, they had to face a dangerous turbulence, but when they crossed the white cloud layer, a huge mountain stood in front of them. Yes, at this point, the pilot realized that he was still in the Andes Mountains. The pilot risked his life to gain altitude again. The plane's nose was now facing the sky, but unfortunately, this could have been done a little earlier. The tail of the Flight 571 collided with the top of the mountain and separated from the aircraft. At this time, the mountain was completely covered with ice. Without the tail and wings, the Flight 571 fuselage came down sliding in the snow and stopped at this point. Due to the crash, 12 passengers had already left the world on the spot, especially those who were present in the last part of the plane. In general, 33 passengers were saved in the plane's fuselage, but they were badly injured. Due to the separation of the tail, the last part of the plane was open and great cold was coming in from it. At 11,500 feet altitude, they were trapped in the Andes Mountains, where the temperature was minus 30 degrees Celsius. As they were leaving, they could only see snow-covered mountains. First of all, they buried their friends' bodies in the snow. The plane crash alerted the Chilean authorities, but they did not know that they had actually crashed in Argentina. Without wasting time, they started a search operation in which 4 airplanes had taken part. From morning to evening, they did not see any plane during the search. It was a very difficult search operation because all the mountains below were reflecting the light due to the snow. In this search operation, Uruguay and Argentina also took part. And now, the total 11 aircraft spent the whole day searching for Flight 571. Here, rescue planes passed over the remaining passengers on the crash site, but despite giving them millions of signals, they could not see the rescue planes. Later, they got a lipstick from a luggage that they used to write big SOS on the fuselage of the plane. They also made a cross on the snow from the luggage bag, but they still could not be seen by the rescue planes. After running the search operation for a total of 8 days, on 21st October 1972, all the passengers were declared dead and the search operation was over. On the 11th day, the passengers on the crash site got a radio in the cockpit. After tuning it, they heard that the search operation to find them has now been stopped. Where they were already in so much trouble, this news made them even more sad. The last hope of their survival was also over. In the first week, 5 more passengers died due to injuries. Now, only 28 passengers were left on the crash site. They collected the plane's wreckage and the luggage and closed the fuselage of the plane so that they could be saved from the cold. They cut the plastic visor of the cockpit and made glasses for themselves, which almost were saving from the light reflected by the snow. They used the seat covers for heating and made snowshoes from the cushion of the seat. They had 8 chocolate bars, 3 jam jars, some dry fruits and water bottles. In the first week, they divided the food and ate it with great difficulty, but when all these things were over, they started eating clothes and cotton, which made them even more ill. In this part of the Andes, they could not see anything for energy, and on top of that, it was not possible to get off the ridge they had crashed on, nor to go up. During this time, the condition of the passengers was that their body weight had decreased by 40%. Finally, when they did not understand anything, they started eating the body parts of their dead friends. Obviously, this decision was very difficult, but hunger, thirst and weakness forced them to take this step. After 17 days, on 29th October, there was an avalanche at night, and it attacked the fuselage badly. The speed of the snow plow was so fast that the entire fuselage was filled with ice. In this accident, 9 survivors were killed, and remaining 19 people, whatever was in their hands, they removed the ice from it and made room for oxygen. As the days went by, the condition of the survivors was getting worse and worse, one by one. All the deaths were being observed, and the remaining survivors were waiting for their death. By December 12th, means after 60 days of the crash, 3 more survivors lost their lives. The remaining 16 people had only 2 options. Either they start counting their remaining days or start hiking the vertical cliff in the west. On 12th December 1972, 3 rugby players, 𝗥𝗱 𝗠cie𝗱𝗲, and 𝗥𝗲 decided to hike the western peak, hoping that on the other side would be the Green Valley from where they might get some help. This was a very difficult hike because they did not have professional gears and the temperature was -30°C. They wrapped sleeping bags made by hand and warm clothes made from the seats of the aircraft and went on a hike. After hiking for 3 days continuously, when they finally reached the peak of the mountain, they found that the other side of the mountain was also covered with snow. There was no greenery and no signs of life. Due to the shortage of food, one person went back to the crash site. 𝗥𝗱 and 𝗠cie𝗱𝗲 went downhill in search of help on the other side of the mountain. After trekking for the next 10 days and traveling 61 kilometers in a bad condition, they finally reached a valley where there was greenery. There were animals and the river was flowing. First of all, they drank water from the river. Then they saw a person on the horse across the river. Due to the noise of the river, they were not able to reach that person. Sitting on the horse, the local got an idea, and he wrapped a paper and pen in stone and threw it across the river. 𝗥𝗱 and 𝗠cie𝗱𝗲 wrote the whole story on that paper and threw it back. That person ran away and took this letter to the Chilean authorities. At first, they did not believe that even after 2.5 months, the plane crash survivors could still be alive, but the authorities rescued 𝗥𝗱 and 𝗠cie𝗱𝗲 immediately and interviewed them in detail. On 22nd December 1972, it's mean 72 days after the crash, 3 helicopters reached the crash site on the mark of 𝗥𝗱 and 𝗠cie𝗱𝗲. The pilot was also surprised to see the peak of the mountain. How would these 2 rugby players have climbed this mountain without any gear and experience? Finally, all the survivors present in the fuse treatment were rescued and dead bodies buried there in a big grave. A memorial was built on that grave, which is still there today. This memorial reminds us that if a person does not lose courage, he can overcome the biggest problem. I hope you will like and share this video of Topo Troves. Thank you for your loving comments. See you in the next video.